Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Communication Theory for spring 2021. All right, today we're actually going to cover three different theories. They're all very closely related, so I went ahead and just combined this lesson all in one. Please also note that this Wednesday you have an exam, which will be posted in due time. So yeah, just make sure you're staying up with these lectures. I'll do my best to get through this as quickly as I can. But again, we are doing three separate theories here, so let's go ahead and get started. All right. First idea we're going to talk about is relational dialectics theory. And what relational dialectics is essentially saying is that when we are in relationships, there are always these tensions. All right. So our relationship life is this constant process. It's always in motion. Right. We do feel this push and pull of conflicting ideas, and I'll give you some examples of these in the upcoming slides. But here's the big overarching idea, right? People wish to have both and, not either or. So if I say like you can have one of these two items, you're like, I kind of want both of them. All right, even when they're in conflict with one another, right? We have these opposing goals for our life, and we constantly, want to fulfill both of them at the same time, even though it's impossible. So this is what relational dialectics look like. Again, I'll give you a couple examples on the next slide. All right, but dialectics, think about dialectics as these constant tensions that we have that pull us in opposite directions with regard to moving forward in our relationships. Contradiction is a fundamental fact of relationships. When you have a significant other or when you're with your family members, you're going to have these sort of tensions, right? And then therefore communication is central to organizing and negotiating those tensions. So anytime there is a tension, the only way to sort of get past it or sort of figure it out with the individual that you're in a relationship with, again, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, family member, etc., is you have to communicate and you have to negotiate, right? We both want different things possibly in this moment, so we have to negotiate that tension there. All right, so dialectical approach. These are contradictions where, again, we have contradictory goals. So for instance, right, one of the easy ones to think about is in a romantic relationship. You might want a significant other. I want to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but I also really like my space. How do you deal with that, right? How do you negotiate this idea of bringing another person into your life, but also liking this sort of liberty and freedom? All right, being able to, go out when you want to go out and do what you want to do, but you're with a significant other now, and they might want other things. So we're always looking for what's known as dialectical unity as opposed to that tension. So these are the stories that we tell ourselves in order to help make sense of the contradiction. How are we going to negotiate? How are we going to compromise? All right, so here's some of the basic relational dialectics that we have. All right, the first is autonomy and connection. So this is back to the last slide. We like our space. We like to be able to do what we want. We want the freedom to do what we want whenever we want. But we also want that connection with individuals, right? I'm an individual, but I also want a relationship. One of the authors in the textbook I used to use calls this the ongoing dance of intimacy. All right. Now, here's what's interesting about, specifically if we're talking about a romantic relationship, is that both you and your partner arguably want some sort of intimacy with regard to you want a connection to each other. Now, the ongoing dance part is that when they want a connection, you might want to be left alone. And there's going to be moments, right, when you're like, hey, let's go out, let's have a date. I want to feel the connection to another person. And they want to be left alone. So it's not just, one of you is very independent and the other one is very clingy. It's that both of you are those things, but you just are at those things at different times. And so a relationship, and especially in a romantic relationship, is both of you trying to compromise and figure out how can we sort of give each other space and be okay with our own space at that time, and give each other intimacy and be okay with being intimate and having that connection with the other person at the same time. So it's part of the compromise is sort of like syncing up your clocks with each other with regard to these tensions that you're going to face. You might hear like the joke on the sitcoms with regard to when it comes to like sexual intimacy between partners. Some people are in the mood and some people aren't. Well, how do you sort of work that out with the person that you're in a relationship with? When you're, want to engage in sexual intimacy and they don't, but then there's going to be other days when it's sort of flipped. This is what this tension is referring to. This is what this sort of ongoing dance is referring to. There are moments when we want to be independent, the person we want to be in a relationship with wants to be distant, and vice versa. And you have to figure this out, right? with romantic partners. You're gonna have to figure this out with your friendships. There's gonna be weekends when you're like, tell all your friends, like, hey, let's go to the bar, let's hang out, let's watch a football game, and they say, no, I want to be left alone. Well, you have to find time for each other, but you also have to have moments where you give each other space. And so this is that sort of ongoing difficult dance that we have with everybody that we're in any sort of relationship with, to whatever degree. All right. Okay, the next couple of tensions that we have, these dialectics, openness and protectionism, right? So I want people to know me. So we go back to our discussions on mutual vulnerability, right? Peeling back the onion. If you want to have close relationships, you have to open up and you have to tell people about yourself. So you have to be open, but you also don't want to share your secrets, right? There are some things that you just want to hold for yourself that you don't want to open up about. So again, how do you navigate this tension? How do you communicate this strategy with the people that you want to be close to? All right, so this is all about developing communication strategies with those individuals with whom you'd like to have relationships. If you don't open up to people, they can't help you. They can't get any close, right? But at the same time, when you open yourself up, you're opening yourself up to vulnerability, the possibility of getting hurt, the possibility of your secrets getting shared with people who you did not, intend for them to get shared with, etc. Right? So we're constantly going through this struggle. All right. And then finally, novelty and predictability. We all say that we like new things. A lot of people enjoy describing themselves as spontaneous and adventurous, but in reality, also, we really like to be set in our ways. We like predictability. All right, so here's a fun little experiment that's been done, or observations that have been made, I should say, with regard to classroom dynamics. So we're not in a classroom right now, but you all have been in a classroom before. You've definitely seen this, right? But there are plenty of studies that show things. Students say things like, "I want an interactive classroom." Right? I want more group discussions. I want a classroom to be lively and exciting. But then students, they don't participate when they're asked to do, sort of like group activities during class, right? So this is the constant tension that teachers are always going through. How do I structure my class? Because students say that they want more interaction, but students also like the predictability of like, can you just tell us what's going to be on the test? Can I just sit here quietly for 50 minutes? You just tell us what's going to be on the test, I'll study it, and then I'll go about my day, right? Students don't want to be involved as much as they say they want to be involved. So this is a constant tension that, happens in the classroom. We all say that we enjoy new experiences, but also there are moments where we're like, can I just go home? Can I just lock my door and hang out in my, house and, put on my comfy pajamas? Like, I don't want to see anybody. I just want the nice, predictive coziness of home. All right. So we're constantly going through this tension as well. All right, when it comes to our private and public images, you can all think about this for yourself. This would be a group activity normally. But you want to think about, who are you really, right? Who are you? And the answer is that you are a lot of complicated images, right? Then you say, okay, what's your public image versus what's your private image? And they're probably different, right? So for instance, I'll go ahead and disclose a little information. Before I get on Zoom, right, or get on, YouTube, right? Put on a nice shirt. Right before this, I was in my pajamas. My hair was all disheveled, right? I got out of bed not that long ago, right? Had my coffee. It's like, okay, now I got to put on this public image of professionalism in order to give a lecture. And so I'm going to clean up a little bit, right? Now, you go back to this question of like, who are you really? And the answer for me is like, I'm both. I'm both a person who wakes up, like everybody else does, in my pajamas with messy hair. I'm also the person who can, put on nice, business attire in order to be professional when the time is called. I'm also the person on the weekends who hangs out with my friends and acts a certain way, right? I hang out with, different people in different ways. And all of those things are correct with regard to who is, Josh, for instance, all right? So we're always playing around with these dialectics with our own personal image, even when those images of ourselves seem to be in conflict with each other. They seem very different from each other. Josh as a professor is different than Josh as a friend, which is different than, Josh getting out of bed in the morning, right, and looking a hot mess like everybody else does, all right? So we're constantly navigating all of these different images of who we are. Okay, I think that wraps up relational dialectics. Okay, so let's get to the next situation here, which has to do with communication privacy management. Now, this is going to get interesting with regard to social media and online communication. So, communication privacy management started off as this sort of smaller theory. We're going to call it a micro theory, right? Just to make it easy. And what it was studying originally was privacy of men and women in marital relationships, right? Back in the late 80s, early 90s. This is what people were really interested in communication privacy management. They were like, let's just study married men and women and figure out, what do they share with each other and what don't they share with each other, and how do they manage those secrets sort of within this larger marriage situation. All right. Everybody has something that they're secretive about. It doesn't have to be malicious, right? You could go, when you think about marital secrets, people want to go to the extremes like affairs or like having like enormous amount of credit card debt. It could be those things, but it could just be small little things as well. As far as, you have a little, you spend a little bit, you go out and you buy an outfit and, your significant other says, how much did you pay for that? And you kind of like take $50 off what the actual price was, right? It's like, it was only $50. It wasn't, it was really like $100. So you might do little things like that. So this is what the original theory was looking at. How do people manage their privacy specifically in a relationship? As the theory began to grow, right, it expanded to include other forms of interpersonal relationships. So how do you manage your communication strategies and your privacy with friendships, mothers and daughters, sons and fathers, in the classroom, teacher-student kind of stuff? How do people start to manage all these ways of sort of keeping things private when it is appropriate to actually disclose things? All right. So how do we navigate all this? So the definition: disclosure in a relationship requires managing the public and the private boundaries. These boundaries are between those feelings one wants to reveal and those ones that people want to keep private. Right. So we're managing all of our relationships. Now, all of our relationships are going to have different levels of disclosure. So when you're with one friend, you're going to open up secrets that you're going to keep secret with another friend. All right. And your relationship with each of those individuals requires that you manage what information you let out sort of within each of these situations. All right. Now we get to this big $1 million question. How is this complicated in the age of social media versus 1991? It's now complicated because people are putting everything online, and now every once in a while, things that we intended to keep private from some individuals might sneak out a little bit, right? And we post something online that normally we wouldn't tell someone, but we post it, and then people find out, hey, you said you were, busy this weekend, helping your parents move, and then you posted a bunch of images of you at a party. Why didn't you just tell me you didn't want to hang out with me, right? Why didn't you, want to invite me to that party? Why did you have to, lie about where you were? All right. So these sorts of things start to slip out a little bit easier in the age of social media because so many things in which we partake in become more public. Some of our beliefs, we think that they're private. We think that we're sending like a Facebook message to somebody's wall on Facebook. I think it's still called a wall. I haven't had Facebook in 15 years. You put something up on Facebook and in your mind, you're like, I'm just sending a message to my one friend on Facebook. And sometimes we forget that Facebook is this public forum and everybody can see it. So even though I think I'm sending just a message to my friend on Facebook, it is getting broadcast to anybody who wants to go to my friend's Facebook page and read all the comments, on their Facebook page. All right. So this gets complicated. Okay, so there's 5 different principles when it comes to what it is we disclose and not disclose. I'll get to this picture of myself here in a second. All right, it'll make sense. Okay, so the first is this principle of ownership. So people believe that they own themselves. People believe that they have autonomy, right? I believe that I get to control my own information. However, when it comes to control, we create boundaries. We think about what boundaries we created, and then we start to think about, okay, but if I'm starting to give my personal information to other individuals, right? And it could be Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, or I'm just telling a secret to a friend. I have to realize that I'm giving up some control as to whether or not that secret actually gets out. All right. So this becomes something that we have to recognize. Anytime we put something out, anytime we tell anybody anything, we no longer have absolute control over that information. Right? We might put our Facebook messages on private. But we all know that there's breaches and there's hacks and that there's fun little ways that people get around all these social media barriers that are supposed to exist. We know that, you send a direct message to someone. We've all seen those situations where direct messages are leaked. Somebody's talking with, somebody important. That important person does something bad, and then that individual leaks all of their direct messages and says, look, all these horrible things that some celebrity or this politician has like direct messaged me online. Emails, we think emails are private. Emails aren't private, right? So once we sort of put something out there in the world, we want to put boundaries around our information. However, we have to recognize that once we give that information to a third party, we can sell them like, please keep this private, but it doesn't always exist that way. All right. All right. We all make some sort of rules for ourselves. Hopefully you're doing this with your social media accounts. People share and withhold information based on these rules. So think about, what rules do you have for sharing and withholding information? For you all who are undergrads who will be getting jobs soon, hopefully some of the rules you've created for yourself are like, if I'm going to post pictures on social media, make sure they're appropriate, no excessive party images of, a lot of alcohol involved. Don't wear, your work attire in an inappropriate picture, right? Don't tell your boss that you're sick one day and then start posting stuff online that shows you, out and about and enjoying a vacation to Cancun. All right. So you should make some rules for yourself with regard to what it is you are willing to share on social media versus what it is you are going to withhold on social media. Every thought that comes in your head does not need to be broadcast to the world. All right. Co-ownership. Other people become co-owners of your information. Again, back to this question of like who controls your information, who co-owns your information, and why do they do that? If you look at things like Twitter and Facebook policies, as soon as you post anything, as soon as you post a picture on Facebook, for instance, the terms of agreement says that Facebook owns that picture. So Facebook can use those pictures in advertising campaigns, for instance. Anything you post online in a social media platform is then owned by that social media platform. It's a huge contentious debate, but as of right now, Facebook owns it all. So you have to be careful of that. All right, and then finally, turbulence, right? When rules are not followed and mistakes are made, you have this turbulent relationship with your friend. So if you tell a friend, look, I have this little, I have this secret, right? I don't want you, I don't want you to tell anybody. And then they tell someone, you have to think, what's going to happen to that relationship? What happens when, you cross a line and divulge private information to someone, all right? So let's get to this little picture here of me looking all professional. This is my picture on Penn State University's webpage. Woohoo, I'm in a suit and tie. I look all professional like a professor, okay? Here's a picture of me at a party, right, in my master's program. Very different, right, with regard to who's controlling this information, how this information going. Now, this is just a stupid little party. I think, it was like 6 o'clock and we were handing out candy to kids, all right? I was pretty boring throughout most of my graduate school because there's so much reading and writing to do, all right? But you see the difference in these two pictures. One of them is going to get posted online with regard to, come and take my class in this suit and tie. Another one is not going to get posted online, right? This picture, I had a football jersey, so I wore a football jersey and put little eye makeup on. So I was a football player when the kids were coming to the door asking for candy. All right. My friend Chelsea takes this picture, and I would tell Chelsea, to some extent, like, hey, you now co-own this information because she took this picture on her camera. Can you not post this online? Or like when it comes to, professional settings, like don't disclose this picture to the rest of the world. All right. You all might have had a similar experience. Well, probably a more precarious situation where you're out with friends. Your friends have cameras. They're taking pictures. The next day you wake up and there's all of these Facebook posts that are tagging you in pictures, and you might feel a little embarrassed by them. Your friends co-own that information, but maybe you made a rule with your friends, like, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to have a fun time, like, no pictures. Let's put our phones away. Let's just enjoy this evening the way it is, and we don't need to post pictures online and on Facebook of all this tomfoolery, all right? So this becomes important, again, especially in the age of social media. You need to make rules for yourself as far as what you post, and you need to make rules with your friends when it comes to, those moments when they start to co-own your information. And by information, they co-own your image, right? Because there are cameras everywhere, right? People are posting things on Facebook. Facebook recognizes your face and then automatically tags you in a picture, right? Even though you didn't want it tagged, all right? So there's all these ways, and we have to sort of be more and more careful as far as like how we're being tracked and monitored and what sort of public image we're putting out there, even in these private moments, like, me handing out candy at a Halloween party to these little kids, right? It's like, that's not an image that I want, as my professional picture, all right? So you have to be more and more careful with how you're managing your private information, and how you're curating your social media feed to make sure that the image of who you want out there for the world is the image that actually goes out. Okay, what should be private? An interesting conversation going on in this sort of communication privacy management world has to do with what are known as like mommy blogs. So there's a story in one of these textbooks I used where a woman talks about, right, so she's okay now, so just in full disclosure. But she tells a story about communication privacy management where she says, look, when I was in my childhood, I told my mom that me and my mom had an argument, and then I went and I cut myself, right, to sort of like prove a point. It wasn't a suicide attempt. It was just like, I'm a juvenile with a lot of angst, and I'm going to sort of show you, mom, kind of moment. And then the mom shares this story, right? So you have a mom and a daughter who are fighting with each other. The daughter does something to sort of show her mom, like, I could hurt myself if I want to, in this sort of like teenage phase. And the mom posts it. Now, this becomes a question of like what should be private, especially for children going through childhood moments of stupidity, right? Which we've all gone through. So you come to this question of like, do children have the right to privacy, especially when it comes to online things, right? And we can talk about like Twitter and Facebook here in a second. But in the age of social media, internet, mommy blogs, should adults share stories of their children? So in this first situation where this now woman like tells a story, it's like, when I was a young kid, I cut myself to prove a thing to my mom. Should the parents have told that story, through some sort of mommy blog, right? On a mommy blog, right? If a young kid is constantly wetting the bed, right? And everybody knows who like a famous mommy blogger is, right? Let's say her name is, I don't know, Stephanie, all right? So there's a mommy blogger named Stephanie. Stephanie has a public persona, and every week she writes a story about her kids, and hopefully it's going to help other moms be better moms with her. But she's telling a story. It's like, hey, I got this little kid named Charles, and he's constantly wetting the bed all the time. One day Charles is going to grow up, and he's going to want to take a girl to prom, right? And now these stories of him wetting the bed, his entire childhood, are posted all over online because his mom has been posting this stuff about him. So this is an interesting debate that goes on, especially when we're talking about adults who are telling stories about their kids online, when we know that those online stories are going to be sort of solidified there forever on the internet. All right. How much information should be disclosed by parents about their children in the age of social media? This is a debate. Now, we can also think about, children have the right to privacy when it comes to teenagers who do stupid stuff at 14, and then it gets recorded, right? And you can go look up all these stories online. I'm not going to go through them all. You all can find plenty of them, though, right? But a 14-year-old posts a stupid joke on Facebook, and that stupid joke, them trying to get a laugh, actually is extremely offensive, right? It comes back a couple of years later to haunt them as they're trying to get into college, and now colleges are rejecting students and saying, you can't come to our college anymore. We're going to retract your admission papers because when you were 14, you said a stupid joke, right? Because when you were 14, you got caught on camera saying something stupid or doing something stupid. Now, people my age and older, I kind of got like. Facebook came into play when I was like a senior in college, so I was kind of right around the cutoff time of like pre and post social media childhood. All right. People my age kind of look back and say, like, we said and did a lot of stupid stuff when we were teenagers, like everybody did. we're fortunate that it was never on camera and that we never had the ability to post a stupid joke online, right? Or maybe let's say you don't post it online. Let's say you just text your friend something stupid, right? I can call my friend a stupid name to their face when I'm 12 years old, right? Today you have people who are texting stupid, jokes to their friends at 12 years old, and now it's sort of solidified in a text message forever. I say something, let's say that it's stupid when I'm 14 years old, it kind of goes out into the ether and it disappears and nobody knows that I said it or didn't say it. Kids these days, they're on social media, and what they're saying when they're trying to be stupid and trying to fit in with their friends gets solidified in a permanent text message forever, in a permanent social media feed forever, and then later on when they're adults, sometimes it comes back and haunts them a little bit. And this, I think, is of interest. I think it's something we should be concerned about, especially when you have adults who are quote unquote like canceling people for things that they did when they were teenagers, when they were children, right? So I'm not saying that all children should not be culpable for their actions. There are obviously very offensive things that nobody should be saying, but every once in a while, like a kid says a stupid joke trying to fit in, and it comes off wrong, and I don't know if it should be solidified forever and then haunt them, the rest of their life, where they, can't get into college, or they can't get a job or whatever. All right. So here's some things just to keep in mind. Obviously, if you're a kid, don't be posting stuff on social media, but also, again, when you get to, parents and adults sharing things that their kids did, do kids have the right to not be put online when they don't really know what the long-term consequences of sort of like online means? Age and self-disclosure, just real quickly, right? We go through stages of self-disclosure and it's correlated with age. Children don't share a lot about themselves, right? Because they're embarrassed. They don't really know what to do yet. Teenagers do start to share a little bit more about themselves, and the reason is because they start to realize that in order to gain friends who are like them, right? Like attracts like you want to find people with common interest. You have to disclose a little information about yourself. Even if you think it's embarrassing, you're like, I got to go find the other kids who are also into, I don't know, like Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's like everybody makes fun of those kids, but like, I want to find those kids to be my friends. So I have to disclose it a little bit so, I can find those individuals who can be my friends, all right? So teenagers start to share a little bit more out of necessity of forming in-groups and out-groups. Children don't really have to, because the only people children really know really well are like their parents and their siblings. So they're not really sort of out in the world the way that teenagers have a little bit more freedom to, you go to dances, you go to the mall, you hang out with your friends apart from your parents. And so you have to share a little bit more in order to garner closer friendships. Adults share a lot. The reason adults share a lot is because by the time you reach adulthood, the chances are that most of your good friendships are solidified, and romantic partners are usually solidified. So you got married, you have like a core group of friends. So you're like, look, I have my 10 close friends. Like, I don't really care what I say if I offend anybody else. If people don't like me because of some embarrassing situation I've said, it doesn't matter, because I know that I have my 10 close friends and they're not going to leave me just because I say something stupid. All right. So adults tend to share more because they're not concerned about forming in groups and out groups as much as teenagers are, because for the most part, when it comes to adults, most of their in groups and out groups are pretty well solidified, and they know that if they have good close friends, that those friends are going to stick around even if they say something stupid. Okay. And finally, elderly people, they don't share a lot of personal information. Because as you get older, a lot of your friendships start to slip away for various reasons. Yeah, right. So elderly people don't share as much because the people who they were sharing things with start to slip away to various degrees. All right, privacy rules. The big thing, it mostly depends on culture. So is your culture open and closed? There's a gender criteria. Women tend to share more than men do. All right. Motivational criteria, we share with people who share with us. So again, mutual vulnerability. If I feel motivated to share, I'm going to share more. So if you want to learn more about someone else, the best thing you can do is share some information about yourself. If you want people to be open with you, be open with them, and it's usually reciprocated. Contextual criteria, right? So did you go through a life-changing experience with someone? If you go through life-changing experiences with individuals or sort of like life-defining moments with people, you're more likely to form a close bond with them, right? So it could be something horrific like a natural disaster, a war, car accident, or death. These types of situations, you're going to feel like the closeness of the individual to you who shared in that experience with you. It also could be a very exciting moment, like winning a championship, right? If you were on a high school team that won a championship, chances are that you and those individuals are going to be close for life, because you went through a very, you went through the struggle of working hard in order to win the championship, and the sort of life-defining moment of winning a championship. It's something that only you and those other individuals who are on the team with you fully understand. And then finally, risk-benefit criteria. You say, like, is it worth it? Is it worth that I share this information? Do I think that it's going to lead to benefits? If I don't think it's going to lead to any good outcome, I might not share it. Okay, finally, chapter 13 here, social information processing theory. Okay, individuals have the ability to establish online relationships, and these relationships are equal or greater to the intimacy achieved in face-to-face relationships. Online relationships have the potential to be significant in people's lives. So, all this is talking about is how now that we are moving online, we have to recognize that face-to-face relationships are not the only relationships we have, and therefore we have to sort of navigate the idea of whether or not our online relationships are as satisfying as our face-to-face relationships. So a couple things you can think about is, do you have a significant relationship that is mostly online? Do you have a face-to-face relationship that is enhanced online? So for instance, like, do you have a long-term relationship? Did your boyfriend or girlfriend move away for school? You're at Penn State, they're at Ohio State. So it's a face-to-face relationship. It started off face-to-face, but now it's enhanced because, you all can talk through online communication, right? How are online and face-to-face relationships similar and different? Are they equally satisfying or just satisfying in different ways? Okay, so just things to think about. Online communication can enhance our face-to-face relationships, but we also have to recognize that if all the relationships we have are with people online in a long-distance format, then we're not as sort of closely knitted together in our local community, right? We don't know our neighbors as much, right? If I can stay online all day and talk to my friend who lives in Ohio, I don't have to go next door and meet the person who lives next door to me. All right, so there are trade-offs to online communication as we move away from more face-to-face interactions. All right, so when it comes to online, there are various constraints, right? So the first is impression management. So how do you manage your image? What pictures do you post online, and whether or not that is the real you? A good way of thinking about this, some psychologists have talked about it as being that we are all curators of our own reality, right? We're all curators of our own lives. When you think about curation, it's a term from museums. So a museum curator, they're the ones who bring, there's a basement full of artifacts. The curator's like, these are the artifacts we're going to put out front. There's a whole lot of artifacts back here, but these are the ones we're going to put out front in the museum for the public to see. That's how psychologists are now talking about the ways in which all of us individually navigate our life online. So there's a lot of stuff in our life, but we only put the good stuff out online. We're curating our lives. Here's the best picture of me, right? I like a lot of different music, but here's the music that I like that I think other people will also like, so I'm going to put it on my page as my favorite music or my favorite movie, or my favorite book, right? Here, I do a lot of different activities, but I'm only going to highlight these 3 activities because they're the coolest activities, right? So this is how impression management works online. And then you have to ask the question again, like, is this the real you? And the answer is yes and no, right? It is the real you because you like these things, but it's not the complete you because you're not allowing people to also see the mess. And if you don't allow people to see the mess, then people only have this very superficial idea of who you are. And again, that sort of breaks down the ability to actually form long-term, lasting, close, intimate relationships with people if you're not showing them both the good stuff and the bad stuff. All right, you're not going to be 100% put together like your online profile shows 100% of the time. There's going to be plenty of times when you look a mess, when you're acting a mess, when you just want to be under the covers on the couch all day watching Netflix, but you're not going to sort of put that image out there. All right. So we do manage the impression that we give people online, and we always have to, realize that if that's not the real us, the people we're seeing online, that's not the real them either. Well, that's not the entirety of them, right? All these Instagram posts and stuff, it's like that's the best one picture that somebody posted on Instagram out of 100 pictures they took with all these filters involved, right? It's like they found one good picture, good for them, right? Because we do the same thing. So as long as we know what we're doing, we can sort of manage and realize that other people are doing this too. And then again, if you want to have a close relationship with someone, you have to show them both the good picture that you post on Instagram. You also have to be willing to show them the 99 terrible pictures that didn't make it into the Instagram feed. All right. Okay. The actual self. Know the difference between these three. These will be on the test. The actual self, the wholeness of you, all the good stuff and all the bad stuff, right? That's everything. The ideal self is who you want to be, right? How do you envision yourself right now? And it has to do with right now. Who is my ideal self? Like, what can I do right now to be awesome? And the ought self is what should you do and be, right, in order to sort of develop into the future self, right? So the actual self is just who you are. It's all the good and the bad. The ideal self is like, how should I be acting right now in the present, right? And the ought self is like, who should I be in the future? Like, where do I want to get, all right? So what characteristics am I trying to develop in order to be that person that I need to be in the future? All right, those are, just know what those three are. All right, you all have probably seen these memes floating around. They have ones for law school and every other type of profession with regard to like what my parents think I do as a law school student. I look really awesome. You go through everybody else, like this is the reality of law school. Me hiding in a desk in the library because it's painful and hard. All right, so we all put out perfect images of ourselves online, but we realize that that's not the totality of who we actually are. Final slide. All right, social presence theory, right? So social information processing, it borrows from SPT, right? So it's the extent of which you are aware of the actual person on the other side of the communication media, right? So social presence, when you're talking to people on Zoom or you're interacting with people on Twitter or Facebook, how aware are you that they are an actual real person, where if they were sitting in front of you, would you say the same things that you're saying on Facebook? All right. So we all are very aware that people say mean, nasty, disgusting things to people online. And if those people were face to face with each other, they would not be acting in such an egregious fashion. So social presence theory looks at when we interact online, does our mind realize that we're actually interacting with a person, or does our mind think that we're interacting with something that is person-like, but it's not actually a human being? All right, and we see this all the time, right? We see online, Twitter fights and Facebook fights, and we're like, people don't talk like that. Like, if people were face to face, they wouldn't act like that. Yeah, people behave very differently. And sometimes we forget that the people that we're interacting with are actual people. So this is what SPT looks at. How do we communicate with people differently online? Because our brain is thinking about online communication differently than face-to-face communication. All right, it's not the same. All right, it's not. I know we're doing all these Zoom classes, not the same as in-person classes. You are well aware of that. I don't need to tell you. All right. So we can ask ourselves a few questions. Who or what am I actually talking to when I interact online, right? It's one, I'm interacting with a person who is managing their communication differently because they are communicating online as opposed to communicating face to face. You also have things like AI, right? So am I interacting with some sort of bot, right? Am I interacting with an algorithm? There's some interesting research going on right now where when you do sort of like online chat boxes with tech support, sometimes it's not even a real person. It's just a robot trying to answer your questions for you. But you're acting as if the person that you're communicating with is a real person. I've done this a few times when I'm trying to pay my bills online, and you type your question into the chat box, and it comes back with these generic answers, and I'm like, just put a person on the line. I don't want to deal with trying to guess, or I don't want some robot trying to guess what I want. right? It's just easier to talk to a person than talk to a robot. Same thing happens on your phone, right? They say, what can I help you with? Press 1 for this. Can you explain your situation to me? And you try to explain it to this mechanical voice that you know is not a person, but that mechanical voice is trying to help you, all right? So how are we interacting with things that are less than human? For those who haven't seen the movie Ex Machina, I would definitely recommend watching it. It used to be available on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore right now, but it is available at various libraries if you want to go check out the DVD. But it has to do with sort of like future AI, and it's a relationship between a real person, man, and this AI robot in let's say female human form, right? And you start to sort of see these lines blur between this guy becoming into this close sort of flirty relationship with a robot, and you know conflict ensues, we'll say. All right. Deep fakes, you've probably seen some of this stuff on the internet. I'm going to include a link here. I'll put it down in the YouTube comment section. But the ways in which online pictures and noises and sounds are being manipulated so that you think that you are watching someone talk when really it's all a facade, right? It's all fake. So this YouTube clip just came out like a few days ago, and it's somebody who's is making multiple TikTok videos of Tom Cruise that are not Tom Cruise. It looks exactly like Tom Cruise. It sounds like Tom Cruise. The person, like it for all intents and purposes, you're like, this is Tom Cruise, right? But they put a little thing on there that says like, this is a deep fake, like this is not real. But you can see how easily within a year or two, or probably not a year or two, people are probably doing it right now, right? People are posting videos of celebrities, of politicians saying and doing things that those celebrities and politicians never did, right? But it's just this sort of like image of the person doing that thing, because we have the technology now to replace people's faces, make people's mouths move. Yeah, so check out this idea of deep fakes, and then you start to say like, am I really like I watch a Tom Cruise video, am I really reacting to Tom Cruise? I'm like, wow, Tom Cruise is really funny in this video, or am I reacting to something else? And then you take that into the world of like politics and global relations. You can see how this can be a big problem down the line, right? We can get, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, to say something that he never said, but you make it go viral globally. All of a sudden, all these world leaders are thinking Joe Biden said something offensive, perhaps, when he didn't. This can become a big problem. All right. So am I really reacting to Tom Cruise here, or am I reacting to an algorithm? Are world leaders reacting to something Joe Biden actually said, or is it some sort of deep fake video that he never said at all, but now it's causing conflict in the world? All right. So how aware are you that face-to-face communication is different than computers? And how aware are you that some of the stuff you see online is not real? All right. Some of the people you interact with online are not real people, right? This is of interest. Okay. Video chat seems more real than Facebook. A Zoom phone call seems a little bit different than, a Facebook post. And then you have to start thinking about like, how does this change the relationship with the person I'm interacting with? So we'll talk about, let's just get down here and talk about synchronous versus asynchronous. Synchronous communication means it happens in real time. So if me and somebody else are having like a direct message conversation and we're both there, it's happening in real time. Or if we're on, FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or whatever, we can see each other's faces, happening in real time. As opposed to asynchronous communication, which happens at different times. You can watch this YouTube video clip as well. This is a comedian, Aziz Ansari, where he's talking about text messaging with a girl that he's trying to date, and then all of a sudden she sort of leaves him on red for like a couple of hours, and he's getting furious. He's like, why aren't you texting me back? Why aren't you texting me back? And you can, watch how this goes. But we sort of realize that even computer communication, right? Computer mediated communication can be different if it's on at the same time, right? You and I have a conversation versus I write a message and then you write a message 2 days later, right? I write you an email, you collect your thoughts, and then you write an email 2 days later, right? There's no interruptions. Interruptions can be productive. If I get halfway through a sentence and you say, whoa, Dr. Phillips, that's not what I meant. I meant something different. you can correct me, as opposed to me writing out everything, but my entire response is misconstrued and inaccurate because that's not the question you were asking at all. All right. So synchronous and asynchronous communication changes the ways in which we communicate with people. All right. Yeah, so we get to this question, which Aziz Ansari asked, right? How do you feel when someone stops texting you in the middle of the conversation, or doesn't text you back immediately? This can be an emotion that you felt before, right? Where you're in the middle of a conversation and someone just stops texting. You're like, I don't really know why they stopped texting. Are you getting upset with them for a reason that, for a good reason, or did their phone die? Did they go into a dead zone where they're not getting text messages anymore? These are things to think about. All right. So computer mediated communication, you all know it, you felt it, but just know that there's a lot of research out there that's looking at how does it change the way we communicate. And now that we know that it changes the way we communicate, we can be more reflexive of the fact that what we do online is very different than what we do face to face. So everything that you see online, Facebook, Twitter, etc., know that it's all, not all of it, but a lot of it is sort of like make believe. It's ran through an algorithm. And just recognize that it sort of changes the way that our brain is processing information. So if we can be aware that social media is changing the way that our brain is forming relationships, is keeping up with relationships, then we can at least just be aware of that, and then we can possibly, hopefully, change the way we interact with people moving forward. All right, so those are the 3 theories for the day. I know that was a lot to get in once, but they're all done now. We don't have to spread them out over 3 class periods. Just go back and review this. This kind of information is going to be on the upcoming test, and watch these 2 quick YouTube videos, and I'll talk to you later.